Welcome to the Law Life Podcast. On this episode 10, cannot believe I got to episode 10. Thank you so much for everyone that's been on so far. I have so many ideas for this podcast, and we have a really special guest tonight. It is one of my past applicants, a very recent passer, but one of my most hardworking, disciplined, focused, no complaining. I never heard one complaint from this man. Applicants, Lalo Vasquez. Woo woo. Okay, how are you?
I'm well. I am still, I think, celebrating inside and outside about what happened. I'm doing great.
And oh my gosh, you look so good. Like there's color in your face. You're like, this is not how you typically look during bar prep.
The post-bar glow.
Yeah, you have a post-passing glow, right? I have a feeling there's a great background story here. So tell me about like where you grew up and your passion, your desire, inspiration to become an attorney.
So I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, and I'm an only child, but I'm from two very big families. My mom and dad both have huge families. And so I had a lot of cousins, and I use this story all the time to remind me why I became a lawyer or why I want to become a lawyer. I was a self-advocate always because I was always alone. And so I always had to self-advocate, but I always advocated for anyone who needed it. I was a fighter my whole life. I would always stick up for people. I didn't know what that meant, but I have found myself doing that in my life a lot of times and have been successful in it in various ways. And so I think that was probably the first inkling of me being an advocate for not only me, but other people and making sure they were okay and helping them through tough things, whether it was interactions or just in school and being in student government and kind of fighting against the school system and using the student code of conduct when I was student council president to point out something that was overlooked by the administration.
I can so relate to that. Okay, so you're the fighter. You're the voice. You're the voice that a lot of people don't have.
Yeah, and my dad is an immigrant. He comes from Mexico, and my mom is from the South. So, my dad, I was very protective of that. And sometimes, that was looked down upon.
What was looked down upon?
The immigrant status sometimes is seen as it was hard. It was a certain part of the country. I never wanted anyone to treat my dad a certain way because of how he looked or because of his ethnicity. And I shared that ethnicity. So I was very protective. So I've always been an advocate. Yeah. I mean, all the way through, again, in high school, I fought the school administration, but took it to the school board and really fought. And it was like a court case to me because, and then dipping into constitutional, I'm like, well, it was a public school. I was essentially on the right track. We went out and got an attorney.
Right. It's so interesting because during these podcasts with these amazing guests I've had so far, including you, there's always like some inspiration, right? Like for a lot of times it's like someone has a family member that's a lawyer or they went through something hard, right? And then there's those like you that just have this innate fire to stand up for what's right. I have that too, I would like to say, where I definitely was shy a little bit growing up, believe it or not, but I had this sense of purpose, like to stand up and to say like, that's wrong, right? And I was not hesitant to do so, whether people liked it or not. I'm still like that. Yeah, definitely. My dad is a lawyer and he's retired now. And that was a big inspiration for me, but really was more just like what you're talking about, which we haven't talked about on here. So that's really cool. And okay, so you knew from a young age you wanted to do some type of advocacy work.
I didn't.
You
I always
didn't?
thought it was a teacher. And my path was very,
Lalo, do we have the same story? Because I also thought I was maybe going to be a teacher, and now I am a teacher.
I thought I was going to be a teacher, but I actually left undergrad and I moved across the country and I ended up becoming a dancer. It was very odd. It was very weird.
What kind of dancer?
A backup dancer for a little pop star out of Seattle. It was not a big, and
So you can like dance hip hop and stuff?
yeah. I was in a dance.
Stop.
I was in a dance like super group up in Seattle.
No way.
Moved to LA. Yeah. Mhm.
Wow. Okay. I didn't see that, but okay.
Yeah, very random. That's how I got here. And, along the way, whenever I was in something, I was an actor, I did stage stuff, and I always just kinda played around in that space of creativity because I was always a creative kid. Being an only child, I played make believe a lot, and so I was into it. If you wanted to do something, pretend, I'll do it. It also was what got me writing, being alone, I write a lot. I journaled a lot as a kid.
Mm.
So, in Seattle,
Mhm.
I had kind of a dual track, and so I was dancing, but I was also working to support myself because I wasn't a professional dancer. We did a lot of it was a group and it got the touring I got paid, but that was short-lived. It was 2 years of my life and it was awesome. But I worked in the dot-com space and I worked in human resources. And so that's very aligned with, like, employment law and, you know, benefits, rights, all those things of employment. And when there's a conflict, they come to you to arbitrate and a lot of times be the third party who settles it or helps out. So I did that for about 5 years, and then I moved down here to Los Angeles, and when I got here, I fell into the entertainment business because I was a dancer and I tried acting. I did all of it. I did everything you could do. So I wrote, I directed, I produced, I tried everything because I wanted to make sure that I tried it all, right? And I eventually landed a job in Hollywood in a development and production company working on movies. So I learned the story piece and I worked on that for a while, but I finding myself being drawn to the business side,
Mm.
the deals. I always wanted to talk about the deal terms and get into
Like
like all the
contracts,
yeah, pure contracts
negotiations.
and all
Mhm.
of it. Yeah. So eventually I decided I wanted to work in the business and legal affairs area of Hollywood. And so I wasn't I didn't graduate undergrad yet. And so I am now, inching into later in life. And I needed to figure out if law school was possible. And at the time, there was one school here who would allow it without an undergrad, but I have a lot of life goals and dreams. When I was young, I made lists and I made sure I checked them off. I think we have that in common as well. And I have checked off life lists my entire life. And so on it,
Wait, 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 no, we need to talk about this, sorry. What is a life list? What is that?
when I was younger, I remember, I think it was being like middle school or maybe even younger. We had a speaker, like a come to the, they come to schools and they speak and they motivate kids. And I remember this person said, make a list of everything you want to do in your life and you'll do it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I eventually did that, and I found myself through life continuing to do that when I wanted to do
Mhm.
something. And I operate on lists, which is why I do so well with your program, because every day it's a list and I can
Wow.
check it off. And so I already knew how to do that. I can relate everything to your program, by the way. And so, but one of the things I wanted to do was finish undergrad. I didn't want to get
You didn't want the shortcut.
No, I didn't. And so prior to even entertaining law school, I knew I had to finish my undergrad, but I knew I wanted to work in the legal field. So I did an entire switch and I went to the UCLA paralegal
Uh-huh.
certificate program. It's a
Mhm. How did you like that?
I liked it. I liked it because we were learning the law as much as you think it's just how to support attorneys and you do so much within that as a paralegal at law.
Right.
People think it's a lot of just administrative, but it actually is really
Yeah.
and so it was a one-year program, 2 nights a week. It was very strenuous, but I wanted to do it because I thought it would move me into a space that I could at least work and then finish my undergrad. And so that's essentially what I did, but I left kind of the Hollywood entertainment business and went to a litigation firm. I went to a just
Mhm.
like brick and mortar, small, tiny litigation firm and the gentleman I worked for, one of them was a very successful Supreme Court First Amendment attorney. He had argued many cases in front of the Supreme Court. And I really didn't know much. I had touched the law minimally in my life, but didn't know really a lot about it and how to go about applying it or anything. And so that I will say that program though gave me a glimpse of what law school could be like in a
Mhm.
very, tiny experience. But working at that firm really gave me the real experience of what lawyers do. I was one paralegal for 4 partners and 1 associate.
Well, you were busy.
I was very busy. We did
Mhm.
civil litigation, criminal litigation. We
Oh,
did
wow.
administrative law. We did zoning here in Los Angeles.
Mhm.
I just for 1 year, just over 1 year, it was like a boot camp where I did everything and I just did it all.
Such good experience
It was
to
such
do
good
that.
and I saw
Yeah.
what lawyers did, and I loved
Mhm. Mhm.
it's where I learned how to read the law, it's where I learned how to I got a glimpse of how to research law. I had to learn on the spot, though, because I had
Mhm.
never but I will say, the attorney I worked for, the main partner, he they took a chance on me, and I took a chance on them, and it was great.
Mhm.
But I knew I always wanted to get back into the Hollywood side of the business
Creative.
because I'm a
Mhm.
natural I like to be around talented people, I like to be around that energy. I just Sure, yeah, I just wasn't sure how. So, I found my way to working at one of the Hollywood unions. A friend of mine ran the department there and hired me, and it was really doing claim work,
Mhm.
enforcing the contract, and essentially, the unions all have arbitration clauses, and so they
Mhm.
in an arbitration tribunal. So, I investigated things, I pursued claims, and I pursued money, essentially, for members of that union, and it was, again, operating like an attorney because you can file an arbitration claim and you can serve it, and you're pleading and you're doing all those things, and you don't have to
Very
be
hands-on work.
very hands-on,
Yeah.
and a lot of case filings and calendaring, and so I really enjoyed it, and I spent almost 8 years there. I did move around.
Wow.
I moved
So
around.
are you in law school during this time?
I start my last year of working there. So I was an organizer for 4
Mhm.
years, and that is like
Mhm.
pure advocacy because you're in it for
Mhm.
everybody. And then I moved into the contract department, which was, it's the center, it's the brain trust and the brain of the any union's collective bargaining agreement, which is one
Mhm.
contract.
Mhm.
I moved
Mhm.
into that department and moved back into interpreting the contract and, filing cases or investigating things, researching and reviewing the bargaining history and learning how the 33-page contract that started back in like the 30s became a 700-page contract in 2019. And so my in 2018 I started law school while I was still an
Got
organizer.
it.
And
So
so
you're like
yeah,
you're doing it, like, towards the end of the 8 years. You bet.
well, and I finished my degree when I was at that uni. I forgot to say, I eventually went back. I got a comfortable job, not comfortable, but I knew I wanted to be there. I was doing work I liked, and I was like, okay, now I can go finish my undergrad, which I did. And I went to a local private school here, and just for a year and a half, I hit it, and
Your work ethic is solid,
I just have
pretty
done
solid.
it.
I can imagine what your resume looks like.
Uh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah, it's
I commit to things.
impressive. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, okay, so you start law school, and where'd you go to law
I
school?
went to Purdue online.
Online program. So you're working during the day, and then you're going to school at night. How many hours a week are you going? Like, you're working 40-hour work weeks, and then
Yes,
how many hours are you committing to law school, would you say?
35 to 40.
Wow.
It was a
You're going
full-time job.
80-hour weeks just work in school,
Yes,
and I bet you did
yes.
it with a smile the entire time.
Loved law
I bet.
school. I loved it, and I will say, for me, it was a choice at the time. I wanted to go to one of the local law schools. I wanna go to an evening program, which are 4 years.
Yeah.
Mine was 4
Mhm.
years, but at the time, my job did not allow for it. When I first started, I was doing things that I had to be available some
Even
evenings,
in the
and
night.
sometimes I ran a program that would have weekend events, and
Mm.
so I was like, I couldn't wait any longer. I
Right.
made a decision, and I stuck to the decision and just said, "Do it."
I
And
love
so
that.
I did that, and I had to
Hold
take the
on.
baby.
We gotta go back to that because I have a close friend that talks about making a decision. Like,
Mhm.
you're like, "Okay, I'm in this firm and I'm working and I'm doing what I love, but I know I have this goal and
Yes.
I can't wait." So, you made talk about making that decision and what does that mean? Like, when someone does that, what did that mean to you? Like, it was a non-negotiable, like, "I'm going to law school and what?" Talk to me.
And nothing will stop me.
Mhm.
So this job,
Wow.
my living situation, the money I have, nothing would stop me. At that point, I was willing to take out the biggest loan, do whatever I had to do. And I remember, law schools always warn you that it is a huge commitment, and I wanted to do it no matter what, and so it was a decision where I couldn't look back. I had essentially thrown it off a cliff into the beach, and the waves took it away. I remained committed from that point to finish law school no matter what, and it took me a while. I didn't finish in 4 years. Again, I had to take the baby bar, and I didn't pass the baby bar the
Mhm.
first time.
Yeah, that baby bar, I wish they would get rid of it. I'll be honest with you. I think it's I don't understand. I understand we have a lot of law schools here, but if you're gonna have a baby bar, make everyone take it or not. And I think it's so hard for a lot of applicants because your first year, you really don't even it's almost like unless you've been maybe working in that area, like in a law firm, it's like another language almost. Like if you have contracts your first year, and then you have to take a baby bar that has contracts on it, right? Which is like one of the hardest I think that was one of your subjects that you didn't like from what I remember, I think?
So hard.
No, you love
I
contracts.
work in contracts and I
Right,
love
right, right, duh. There was
the
a subject though that you didn't
it
like. I
was
don't
the hardest thing for me in law school. It was really hard.
contracts.
Contracts was very and I was
I did horrible in contracts in law school. I got put in the lower contracts class, and now I can litigate a contract, I can write a contract, I can edit a contract, I can talk about negotiate a contract, but oh my gosh, when that professor came out and he just started spewing all these UCC codes, and I was just like, "What
what
is
is
going on?" And everyone seemed to get it around
what does
me.
that mean? People would just cite them. 207. I'm like, "What?"
Yeah. 207 or like 33 and you're just and then you start talking about like promissory estoppel and all these concepts that you're just like consideration, bargain for exchange. I'm like, you mean a deposit? Like what why just call it what it is, right? Just call it what it is, right? Money. And and it was so convoluted and so confusing, but you will if you're
You
not
will.
understanding
Yes.
contracts, you will. You will. So, wow, I love the decision. I love that. I'm gonna really remember that.
Law was a major yeah, and all of that goes for every time I thought, "No, I can't do this anymore." And, I switched jobs. I took the baby bar a second time.
Mhm.
I knew I wasn't gonna pass, and I shouldn't have taken it.
Why did you know you weren't gonna pass?
I didn't prepare appropriately. I didn't study
Mm,
appropriately. I did not study at all
mhm.
appropriately. I studied, but not in any way, shape, or form the way I should have.
So what do you say to applicants from that experience that, I have a lot of applicants that take the bar and maybe even take my course, but they're not fully prepared and they fall off or and then they know that they know they're probably not going to pass, but they don't. Then they're devastated. Should you be that devastated if you know you're not gonna pass? Is it still a devastation? Or is it more like I mean, of course, everyone has their own story and journey, but maybe it should be more like, kinda new, right? I kinda knew, and so I'm gonna now do it the right way. So that's what happened to you the second time, I'm assuming.
I was devastated with myself.
Mm.
The word failure
Accountability.
accountability, and I made a decision from that point because I had held myself accountable through law school, but my fellow, law school graduates and even law school students who watch this, you get by. Oh, in law school, you skirt by sometimes, and you are cramming even though everyone tells you not to, and you are doing what you do. I relied on that mindset because I had done that my first year. But I wasn't ready, and I knew, and I should have turned around and walked away. But I'll tell you, I went in because I wanted to see what it was like. So I knew, and I made a commitment and another decision when I walked out that night that when I got the result, I knew what they were going to be, so I couldn't be shocked and surprised. I held myself accountable that day. From that day, I think all of us go in, anyone who's done this, thinking maybe. So you get it far enough away from it, and you think, did I really do that bad? And like, oh, you did.
Yeah, in my experience, that intuition's usually right. Okay, so you passed the baby bar.
I ended up passing, which is fantastic, and I had gotten a new job. And the new job is I don't even know how to explain it. It's so awesome and so
Is
great.
that where you're now?
Yeah, it
I know where you are. Do you wanna say where you're at or no?
I I'm at the world's biggest streamer,
Probably watching it right now. That's what we'll say about
and
that.
I've been there for over 4 years, and
Okay.
I by the way, to back up 1 second, the baby bar I took the first time was in person, the second one was online during the pandemic. It was 20. I was the first group of people to take the online bar. Baby,
Mhm.
we were before
Mhm.
the bar takers. The
What would you say the biggest discrepancy was from your recollection between the in-person and remote? Pros and cons.
the pros are that I was in my home.
Mhm.
You got a break between every essay question.
Mhm.
So you had 15 minutes to get up, stretch, cool off,
I love that.
take it off.
Mhm.
There is something to be said about that
Mhm.
because you get a mental, but you can breathe, you can open a door and get air, and you can, run to the bathroom
Mhm.
in your
Have some
phone.
coffee. Right.
So you do all of that.
Right.
The cons,
Mhm.
and of course, there's you don't have to park, you don't have to stress and wait in line
Or in
and
a
see other
hotel.
their own lane.
Mhm.
And wonderful because
Mhm.
you can concentrate and be alone. There's a little bit of a like, "Ugh, I wish I had people around me," because you don't wanna be alone, but you do. The con was really not being able to use the scrap paper
Mhm.
or
Like
to
the
write on the
printed but you
to
had
write up.
scratch they didn't allow for scratch paper?
Not I don't think so when I took it, if I'm mis I gotta look back and think, but I our scratch paper was, like, on the computer in a little window.
Ah, okay.
So I start a new job, and then I have to start my 2nd year of a 4-year program, so I'd only done 1 year, and it was, like, 2nd year in, and I'm like, "Oh my god, how am I gonna do this?" And so it was the hardest year of law school for me because my 2nd year, I started at the top of the year, and I worked all the time as well. So my job was, full time, and we were so busy.
What were you working in? Like, what department?
So I work in the department who bargains the union collective bargaining agreements for
Mhm.
Hollywood.
Mhm.
And then we, of course, operate under them, and we have to know them,
I
and
love how
and,
you
we
have this, like, niche experience, right? Like, very niche, and that really gets you far, right? Because when you can do something that the majority of the world cannot, and it's so niche and so it's like it's kinda like what I do with bar prep, right? It's
yes.
it's just
Yes, there's
it's
only a small group of you.
small group, right? There's, like, tons of chefs in the world. There's lawyers in the world, but lawyers that can do a very niche area, like, my dad always says that's the best way to go. But,
Yeah.
there's always gonna be people that need that niche, but there's not gonna be a lot of attorneys or, that can do that. So, that's really cool.
Yeah. And there's a lot of attorneys in that space. So it's a very small group of us, and most of them are attorneys. A lot of the people who came up in the business and traditional labor
Mhm,
people, there's mix.
mhm.
That is the and I was able to do it without being an attorney at my
Right,
company.
because of
It
all your
wasn't a
experience that you have.
yeah, it was a requirement, but it is definitely favorable if you have it and it helps you. I would say the higher up you get in the systems of any Hollywood studio or even in the labor world, if you're a lawyer, you're gonna elevate to a level of management or control or something,
Mhm,
oversight because you have that skill set and you have that
mhm,
degree.
mhm.
And so I need to go back for 1 second,
Yeah, let's go back.
only because in my first year of law school, one of the hardest subjects for me was defamation. And
In torts.
I don't know if I told you this. I think I did. But I was studying my second half of my first year, and I was studying defamation and torts, and I was so frustrated. And I was said to myself, because I had a checklist that I had been given from my school, kind of like ask these questions. And I'm like, no,
What? You need what?
I need an approach. And I remember saying the word, and I looked up defamation. I said, I need an
Really?
appro like, I need to approach this a certain way, and I typed in defamation approach, and your video popped up,
My whiteboard.
and I clicked on it, and you were on a whiteboard in this room, and it was like, "This is the defamation approach," and you start writing, and then you do what you do so well, and I was like, "Oh my gosh," it was like the light. It was an angel. I was like, "There she is. This is it. This is exactly what I needed." And I was like, "Where did this come from? How did I find this?" And I was so amazed and I was just in. And I committed at that moment. I was like, "If I have to take the if she does a bar review, I'm going." I didn't even know
Oh my
how
goodness.
and
Are
s
you for real? I didn't know this story. So that's how you found me.
and I then I found all your videos. And
Wow.
so when I was studying for the baby bar, you had them for free. And they were on YouTube, and I was like, "I've gotta go look. I've gotta see what her approach is on this. Does she have one? It'll help me at least just, like, run through it because she simplifies it, and she makes it so relatable. I can walk down her path. she lays the road, and I just run down it. And so I was able to that's what,
You're gonna make me, like, cry, tear up because it's amazing. That's amazing, and you know what it does to me? It makes me feel like 'cause I get that a lot, like, from law
Yeah.
students, like, I've been following you
Yeah.
and if I help one person just with, like, clear because I was the law student once, not understanding what the heck was going on, and we didn't have a lot of online support when I was in law school. Really not at all, and that is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I'm so happy that helped you, and it just motivates me to put more and more out there and help people, so that's awesome. That's how you found me, and were you following so you started following me throughout law school?
Yes. And so I would always check in and see what you were up to and
Meant
see
to
how it was
be.
going. I know.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that so much. But my point is, people, like, what you do in life, you just focus on what you do well. And there's so many people in this world, not everyone is gonna like you and love you. And you find your people, right? Okay, so let's get back to your journey now. So you find me on okay, then we're going through law school, and then fast forward, you're working, year 2 is so hard, but you get through it. But
I
you
do it.
do it.
I never was gonna give up.
Isn't there something to be said about going in through life and you're going through the motions, and then you turn around and you're like, shoot, how the hell did I do that? Right? And I always tell people, like, just keep going. Even when you're feeling like you can't, like you're just so stressed about finances or, failure, you just keep going. And eventually all the pieces come together. It's like a big Lego, puzzle, whatever project, and you get it done. And so you go through it, you get it done. 5 year, how long did law school take you?
In total, it
Yeah.
took me 5 years.
Wow, that is perseverance, Lalo. Like, that is amazing perseverance. And, okay, so you come out of law school and you don't take the bar. Talk to
Well,
me.
so I actually contacted you the last term of law school, and I wanted to start
I
studying.
remember that.
No, so it was last fall, the fall of 2023, and I had thought, "Okay, I wanna take the February bar," and I only had a bar review course because they build it into our program.
At Purdue. Mhm.
They give you access to 2 bar prep programs. It's not a bar prep traditional, there's a professor, and it's very curated, right? And it's great.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I had come to you and I was like, "I wanna do early bar prep because I wanna get ahead of this, and I know your program will work for me." But I had to also do the other one for a grade. And I had employment law in my last, but it was a 4 credit class. It was actually a lot more work than I thought it would be, but it was fine
Mhm.
because it's kinda what I
See that? Everything is it's fine. No complaining from this person. It's next level. It's next level. It's fine. Everything's fine. This is
yeah.
the attitude you need, people.
But what
This is
ended
what
up
it takes.
happening
Okay.
is so it was a benefit because I was doing your program. I was doing the early review, which
Mhm.
is, anyone who takes your
Right, you got started. Mhm.
started, you do a I wouldn't say it's light, but it's definitely lighter than the up and running
Of
course.
course.
But the problem for me was that it was different subjects. So I would have to, do my schoolwork, then I'd try and do yours after. I'm like, I can't do that. So I eventually said to you, listen, I'm not going to take the February bar because I know myself. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to do it too fast. And I already know what it feels like to not succeed on that exam. And I will not do it twice. That is a decision I made when I decided not to take the February bar. I didn't look back. I didn't question it. I let you know. And of course, you understood, supported me, and said, come back, like start up at the top of the year I said, I want to start at, you said you can, and we will get you going and get you ready for July. And
Mhm.
that was
I
like,
remember
that is it.
talking
That
to
is
you about this.
exactly what I
Mhm.
need. Because I just needed to also step away from it for just the last 2 weeks of the year and
Mhm.
not do any of it. I needed to take that breather, and I had not planned on it. I was like, "I'm gonna go," and then I just listened to myself, and I listened to my heart and my mind together. I let them speak to me together. So, it was the best decision I made. So, if anyone has that right now in their life, if you watch this and you're thinking, "I can't," then it's okay not to. It's okay not
Mm.
to.
It's
Yeah.
so true. And I think so many applicants can relate to that. And not only applicants, people in life, right? Like you have a goal, you decided you're going to meet your goal. You're going to work hard, you're going to do everything it takes. But you also have to listen to yourself. So I always say it's admirable to take the break. You don't have to be a hero in your story. You just have to get there. But if you're going to 0 to 100 way too quick, you can risk all that burnout and then the mental's not there, you're not connecting with everything and it's like a disaster. So you decide to postpone till July, which obviously turns out to be a blessing and a right decision. And I think obviously just by talking with you and getting to know you all these months, you really are in tune with who you are. You don't need other people to really push you. Where would you say that really comes from? I mean, is it a belief system? Is it your parents? Would you say that that
I
comes
think
from? 'Cause it's strong.
it's my parents because they really came from nothing. Neither of them finished high school. And to watch them struggle but commit to working, they never
Mhm,
stopped working. They always, 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 no matter what was happening, they went to work,
mhm,
because they
right,
had me or them, they had a family. And so I think that ethic of work transferred over to me in the sense of just if you're gonna do it, do it. If you're gonna commit, then get it done. And
right.
I've because they've always done that, like,
Right. With no excuses, I'm sure, right?
no,
Just like, this is what we have to do.
correct.
That it takes experience and it takes life, and sometimes life kicks you in the you know what, to say like, "Okay, like, what are you gonna do? It's really not in my hands, and I have to work hard for this and get it done because no one's gonna do it for me." So now I wanna get to the bar exam. So now you're done with school, so you don't have the conflicting subjects.
Correct.
After you go into the early prep, so we had you on a schedule, right? And then you go into the general course. So obviously early prep and the general course for you was about, I mean, initially about what, 6 months? 6 months
Yeah,
of
it
prep?
started in January, and then your course started at the end of May, so it was just 5 months. It
Right.
was perfect because it was
Mhm.
exactly what I needed. I needed to go through it a little slower and have the space to sit with it after
Mhm.
I reviewed it.
Mhm.
But and this is the most critical thing for me about your program, in the review, I was even in early prep, I was still doing practice,
Mhm.
and I cannot stress this enough. Get out of the review as fast as you can and practice. Your program is set up so that you are in review practicing. You still have to practice while you're reviewing. And it is mission critical at all times to be practicing, not just reviewing.
A lot of applicants, when they have an essay, they get really frustrated because they're like, I knew it was negligence, but they're not racking out the elements because there's
Yeah.
no structure, there's no approach. And they just sat with that law. So they're just writing in paragraphs, all the different elements and
Yeah.
combining all their rules. And it's not, and California is so strict on real
Yes.
structure and maximizing those points in each
Yes.
component of the IRAC. So really smart advice and
Yeah.
really smart understanding.
I did do it though myself. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I
it's
mean,
hard.
I didn't do it in law school enough.
Yeah.
And then when I was starting at the top of the year, I was like, now remember, you need to get out there and practice. And I
Yeah.
didn't want to,
Yeah.
but built into your course is the practice.
Hmm.
And so I know there's an ability for us to, say, I'm not going to turn something in, right? That is
Yeah.
of course, it's on
Especially
you
in
to
the
turn.
early phase, because it's, like,
Yeah.
not as motivating, the bar is months away.
Right.
So,
But that
yeah.
is to me my advice to anyone starting your early prep and especially anyone in your main course, do the practice from day one.
It won't work
You
if you
you
don't.
oh, yeah,
It
and
won't
so
work.
it
You
took
have to do
I
it.
had to force myself, and it was hard, but I will say, and I had purchased a bunch of bar prep courses, but I just didn't know what I was gonna do, and I had made these early decisions to get things, and then I was like, "What am I
But
talking
it's
about? I'm going
okay
to
to have
Shana."
secondary sources. I'm Yeah. I mean, I think with my course, I'm not a substantive law review program. The only supplementation an applicant may need, which I am going to be developing, by the way, with the new format in the next 5 years, I'm going to be doing substantive law lectures, but they're not going to be long. They're going to be really to the point. So you have to believe in the process. Sometimes I can see, applicants coming in and they're like, do
Yeah.
I trust this lady? You have to be open to it. And that's any course. Any course you go to, you should commit, make the decision, commit, and really get it all done. So what Lalo was doing here, to just explain, is he was not just writing out rules, it was approach. Some of it was rules, but a lot of it is the approach. Let's talk about the approach. The approach, I think, just made sense to you,
Yes.
right?
100%. It's how I think of the law when I
Right.
talk about it.
Me too.
When I travel through an analysis, when I spot an issue, I think of how am I going to approach writing? Because to your point, what do I start with? What do I say? And to know that
Mhm.
the moment I spot an issue, I can go, I've got to write an approach. I got to do
You hammered them.
I have to do an essay approach that starts with,
Mhm.
and I just knew, right? It is what worked for me. And it so well that I walked around talking out the approaches to myself a lot.
That's what you have to do. You have to do that. And you also were great on the performance test.
Not great on the performance test to start.
No, not to start. Mm-mm. But here's the thing, no matter what I gave you and we worked on, you literally took it with
Yeah.
such grace and you went, "Okay." Like, there was no pushback. You had such, and I'm not saying that applicants can't question, they should, but you had such an unwavering commitment to the process. And
Let it take over. I had no interest in driving this car.
yeah, isn't that interesting? What would you say to an applicant in my course where, okay, a lot of feedback that I get is really hard. She gives a lot of work. I am. It's a lot of work. The general course schedule. What would you say to applicants that say, that's a lot of work? And is it what I really need to do? What would you say in your
I would
experience?
say, yes, it is. And yes, it is. You have to commit to doing that much work to do it one time only, never again. And that was my mantra. I told you that.
That was my mantra too.
Uh, you must
That was
have
my
said it to
mom.
us. You must have
Are we related? Are you sure you're like only child? I don't
you
know.
said to us at the start, you wanted.
What do they call it? Spirit animal.
Yeah,
Mhm,
it was
that's it.
for
Mhm.
me, it resonated to me when we had our first meeting together. You said, "You don't wanna do this again. You don't wanna have to do this twice. Do it one time only." And
Yeah.
I remember you said to us, "Make a mantra, do something that you can say every time you think you don't want to, or you feel lazy, or you feel like you can't. Think of it." So I wrote
Mhm.
it down, I looked at it, I said it I really did. Every time I was like, I wanna go for a run instead of study. I wanna go out to dinner with my friends and have margaritas instead of study. I wanna go to Palm Springs and hang out for the weekend. I wanna go to Vegas. I wanna sleep instead of study. I
Mhm.
would just say,
Mhm.
"One time only, never again." And I would get up and I would walk away, or I would say, and I had to disappoint
Yeah,
people.
I remember talking to you and you're like, "I'm not drinking, I'm focused."
It was
I'm
a
Yeah.
lot of disappointment. And family, I would say to my family, like, "I can't. I need to I'm not just here alone watching reality TV or, good movies. I'm not. I am writing on my whiteboard, walking around my house, going for walks and talking the law out,
Mhm.
and I never wanted to do it
Right,
again.
right. Relentless, passion, decision making, discipline, and yeah, it was like a non-negotiable, literally. I also had that same mantra, and I remember my son was 6 months, and I wasn't really with him, and I had a lot of mom guilt, but I was like, "I'm never doing this again," because it's brutal, and it ages you, and it's so much work. But you will get there, and even if you're a repeater, you'll get there. Everyone's gonna accomplish this goal. You have to stick to it. So in answer basically to my question, you would say, "Yes, she's hard, but
It
it's
is
worth it."
it is
Right?
so worth it, and do your best to finish everything. As hard as it is,
Mhm.
it's the
Mhm.
preparation, the built-in multiple
Mhm.
reviews that everyone hates.
Yeah, because right when you think that's the only schedule, then we have a supplement. If you get through all of it, amazing, rock star. And you have to get through the majority of my schedule because everything is interconnected. There are applicants that will start my program, and believe it or not, like not even halfway through, they give up. They're just like, I can't do this. It's too much work. Of course, a lot of them want to blame me, and that's okay because I am going to work you hard. And even though I streamline it, and I really the model for the program was based on me taking it only one time and me leaving Barbary to go, okay, well, there's a better way to do this. There's a more strategic way because you're not going to like do it a week or two and you're going to get it. And you really were relentless. I cannot stress that enough. It was a beautiful thing to see. It showed your positivity, your attitude, your demeanor. And that is so important because I know that bar prep can be really grueling, but for those studying for the bars coming up in 2025 or whenever you're gonna ever take the bar, you have to try and love the bar. You have to try and love the process because if it's a miserable like right now, we have the February bar coming up and the holidays are here. And like we're studying right during Christmas and Hanukkah and New Year's and all these things. And it's like, oh, everyone's out, like you were saying, right? You were saying, "I have to say no." So say no now, get your mantra going so that you
Yeah,
don't have to
totally,
do
it's
this
perfect.
again. So you end up taking the
Yeah.
bar one time, you pass the exam, major congratulations. I really didn't have a doubt that you were not gonna get it done. I mean, because of your work ethic and your focus and your follow through and your positive attitude and the connectivity that we had. It is a partnership that we're doing. And I really want you to know that I'm unbelievably proud of you to do it one time, to go through law school for 5 years, to have all that work history and experience behind you, and now be at your dream job. And I mean, like, you are doing it. This is how we do it. Your parents must be so proud. Your father, is he just so proud? Like
They're really proud, they're really happy,
mhm.
they shared in the excitement with me.
Were
I
they here in LA?
My mom's here, my dad's not, but, you know, I it's funny, I think the text I sent you was I called my mom and now I'm texting you. Because I went to, like, text you first, I'm like, "Oh, my mom will beat me
Yeah.
up."
Yes, definitely. As a mother of 2 boys, I can definitely say I would understand that.
And I was on the 405 freeway because I waited to take the NPR. I don't think I told you this. I waited to take the MPRE until
Okay.
today because
Mhm.
wanted I didn't wanna pace the floor waiting, and
Mhm.
I didn't wanna spend the last couple of weeks stressing, so I thought, you know, if I take the M because they when I saw they were testing in November and I saw the dates, it was
Mm.
7th and the 8th, and I was
Right, there
like,
were 2 dates,
"Our
right.
results come out on the 8th. Can I take the MPRE
Hold
while"
on, you took the NPRE on results day? No, you did
but
not.
it allowed me to focus
You
on
did?
something,
How? How did you do that? You weren't stressed out of your
and it
mind?
didn't really feel like studying again because it was a review.
And you passed the bar.
I'm on the 405 between the Getty and Skirball. I'm heading north. It's gridlock traffic, and I'm like, "How am I gonna check my results?" And I'm like, "I don't care. I'm gonna do it, and I don't care." So I just did it. And mind you, I had to have the perfect song playing, right? Because
What
I'm like,
song was that?
God, it's called "Caught in the Night" by Wolf Club. I'm, like, starting the song, refreshing the email, starting the song, it's refreshing the bar
Wow.
site, and finally, it opens, and I'm
On
like,
the
"Oh my god."
405.
So then I'm, like, restarting the song, and I'm like, "I can't look." So then I'm like, "Alright, I'm gonna look," and I open it, like, I see it, and I see "pass." And I just, like, take a deep breath, and I can't breathe, and then I in my car, stuck, looking around like, "Who do I tell?" Like, "Do I roll around and tell the people next to me?" And then I just started crying, and I was, like, singing, and
Great story. I love that. I love that so much. Oh my goodness, that is so funny. And I'm so proud of you. So that's off the plate. First time taker too.
yeah,
Like that is amazing. And now you're gonna stay at this company, I'm assuming,
I
right?
am.
And you're gonna just continue to do big things. It has been an unbelievable pleasure to get to know you. I know that you're gonna be now in our community, in our circle forever. If there's one piece of advice, I mean, you've given so many great lessons so far. But there was one extra piece of Lalo advice you'd give to someone starting out on this law school or bar exam journey. What would you say?
I would say find your reason and make that your why.
Mhm.
For me, it was a life goal and it was a lot of things I want to do after, moving forward in my life. Being an attorney can help with that. But that's the most critical thing, I think, when you commit to something like this. And there's positivity in it because there's a lot of negative things that we put ourselves through while we're going through it. And the why will always be your reason. And let that reason be genuine for you and you alone.
And that will motivate you and push you to
Yeah.
get there. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. You make my job now really easy. 'Cause now I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and just go kill that day.
I can't thank you enough. I really can't. I cannot. From the moment I found you, you championed me. And I know you champion your students, your applicants, and I can't thank you enough because your championship, your support, unwavering, and really, you convinced me that I could do it.
I'm so appreciative of you, and everything you just said really touches me so much. I feel like we have a very similar passion for life that way. So that's why we, connect so well. So thank you for trusting the process.
If you take this course, just trust it. I just trusted that you were going to take me to where I wanted to go. I just had to make sure that I was paying attention, following directions, and getting the work
You always
done.
brought a beautiful smile, beautiful energy to every single session. And I cannot tell you, and I wish you so much success, but I have no doubt you're going to get whatever you put your mind to and decide to accomplish. So I think this is a beautiful place to leave it. Lalo, you're an incredible human being. Thank you so much for spending the time and giving all your wisdom and journey and history to the Law Life podcast. Have a good night.
You've been listening to Law Life, a podcast about navigating law, life, and everything in between with host Shana Karpeles. Thank you everyone for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for episode updates. For more information on the show or preparing for the California bar exam, you can visit us on YouTube at CA Bar Style.